Welcome to the Nature Based Therapy Podcast, where we explore the healing power of nature through inspiring stories and guided experiences. Let's reconnect with the wild within. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Nature Based Therapy Podcast. My guest today is Sharlene Cohen from Urban Rewild. Welcome, Sharlene.
Good morning, Kit. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me. And I'm really excited to have this conversation because I do know about your background. I know about the work you're doing, and I really want to share this with our listeners to give some insight into, what is nature-based therapy and how people do it differently. So usually what I start off is with a question about, I guess, your relationship with nature and more specifically, your early childhood experience of being in nature. What was nature like for you growing up? What was your relationship with nature?
So, it's a good question, and it has. Thankfully, I have been brought up in a family of nature lovers, but farmers. So my parents are actually farmers. So I've kind of like always had lots and lots of animals, mainly domestic, kind of like farming animals. But always still out on the farm, on the land. And there's, of course, there's birds and there's everything around. And mum and dad have been very nurturing to the animals. So not the typical farmers that if a lamb is sick, you slaughter the lamb because, it's time and energy, there's no money in that. So mum and dad would take that lamb home and they would try and, feed it up and get it strong again so they could put it back out. So I've kind of like, I think that kind of is where it's all started for me. So, and we've always had pets and animals. And then over time, things have just developed more into our native animals. And that's and then the bush and our native environment.
Oh, beautiful. And were there experiences in nature where you felt that sense of, I guess, awe and mystery, where there's certain things being grown up on the land, not just with the animals, but looking at sunsets and sunrises? Yes. And, did you have fruit trees? Did you have the opportunity to play in nature?
Yeah. So that it's interesting. And as you said that, I probably was too young to appreciate sunsets and sunrises. But as you said that, I can kind of like feel the tingle on my skin of the air and the fresh air on my skin. So that's probably because sometimes the farming land's quite open sometimes, and I remember like wind and, but that freshness on my skin and the tingle and the sensations of that. Um, yeah, so that's probably what I remember most from that side of it. Um, what was your second part of that question? I'm just thinking.
Being playful in nature, having that opportunity to play and be your authentic self, and that the free spirit that we have when we're children.
Yes. I mean, I think, when I was growing up, I was lucky because it wasn't necessarily like as children, we finished school and we were allowed to just go and play. I used to go down to the creek and I used to yabby and I used to just, run around on our bikes. And mum just said, I'll be back at 5 o'clock just before dark. And so we had this real sense of freedom. And I think that has taken me into my next stage of my life, which we'll probably talk about as well. I'm not risk averse because I was allowed to have that sense of freedom to play. And we used to go on motorbikes and, go around on the farm and swim in the dam and all that kind of stuff. So, that kind of playful life has probably brought me to this now new playful life.
I love that. It's so important. And I guess that's why I love asking that question so much, because it's the gold that we pluck out of our early childhood experiences that often shape how we are as adults, taking risks, being open-minded, looking at freedom and what does actually freedom look like. And if we don't experience this, we actually don't know that it's an option. So I guess leading on to my next question, I guess you took a risk in studying nature-based therapy, and What made you be drawn to wanting to learn more about nature-based therapy, and what led you to doing the course?
Mm. There was no fear in it for me. I knew it was a timing thing for me. So, um, I met you through another project, and we started a conversation. And then in 2019, we had the bushfires, and that significantly impacted my life. And significantly impact where I live. We were the hardest hit shire in the country and still have been to this, any recent fires and so on. So that was 2019. So with my connection with nature, that took me to the bottom of my wellness, let's say. I didn't know what was going on with me. I couldn't stop crying. I was also going through menopause at this same time. Couldn't stop crying. Just seeing the devastation around me, the loss of the animals, the loss of the trees, the loss of my nature, and the impact that my urban garden had on supporting wildlife. And where, there was birds that coming into my garden, animals coming into my garden that I'd never necessarily seen. So there was a lot of things going on around this time, and my body broke down so much, I was like a cripple. I could hardly walk. And I found out I was suffering ecological grief. I didn't even know the term existed.
Mm-hmm.
So I was starting to spend a lot of time in my garden, sitting and reflecting. And then that was like when it was the time for me to do this nature-based therapy course. And at that time, it was twofold: to do it for me, but to also do it for potentially, as something else that I might explore from a business perspective, or just other things I might do in life. So it, I think my connection with nature prior to doing the course was, I was aware of nature, but I wasn't awakened to the impact that it was having on me, or should be having on me. And I was just taking it more for granted, loved it, never wanted to cause any harm to it or anything, but I just probably didn't realize the impact that can have on our own wellness, and
Mm-hmm.
sitting and doing the journaling and doing the creative arts and all of these things that kind of like, now I am more heightened. I am so much more heightened. I see a bird fly over. I go, what kind of bird is that? Where in my mind, where's it going? What's it doing? Where before I would have just gone, oh, beautiful bird, lovely. But now I'm just so much more heightened because of doing the course. So yeah. So
And
thank you,
more,
Kit.
no, that's okay. And more curious. And I think what you're saying, it's deepened your relationship to the natural world.
Correct.
And you've seen the interconnectedness that we have, and that, nature is our biophilia. We are nature, we're not separate from it. So, how nature is impacted, especially through that experience you went through, has a direct impact with us. So, it kind of works both ways when we go through, you know, natural disasters, or we're
Mm,
going through that, the impacts of climate change.
yes.
We actually feel the direct impact that that has, because it is our biophilia. And I think when we develop that relationship with the natural world through the nature-based therapy processes, that's where we create that awareness that you're talking about, and then it becomes more real. And I'm wondering, the grief that you experienced through the bushfires and the impact those bushfires had, with grief, do you think also nature has the ability to be healer? Because it takes so much from us, but how can it be restorative as well? What can we learn from how nature works with a bushfire and apply that to our personal life?
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of like say my garden healed my heart. And yeah, there's definitely no doubt. I mean, now I look around and yes, we can still see the evidence of the fires, but how quickly it has recovered and restored and rebuilt and regenerated, how resilient, and we as humans, I think, once again, if we're enlightened and awakened or heightened to seeing those messages, and that's what nature-based therapy and the course does, it kind of like teaches you about listening or looking for the messages for today or that
Mm-hmm.
moment that you're sitting there, and what is nature telling you about yourself, about the planet, about what it wants to tell you, what's its story today.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, I mean, I definitely, yeah, it's definitely helped me because I can see its resilience, so I can be resilient. We all share pain, but we all
Mm.
can, yeah, we can wake up each day with a smile on our face and push forward through some of those really bad obstacles. Mm.
100%. And I think, through this experience is not just your early childhood experience of growing up on a farm and working with nature and having those experiences. And I love that you had that remembrance of, just that somatic experience of feeling that crisp air. Because I'd
Yeah.
imagine there'd be a lot of early morning starts in farming.
Yes, that's right.
And that remembering, even if it's just that one thing that you remember, and
Mm.
then going in and doing the course, and that helped you recover through that bushfire recovery period that was going on, not just for country, but also for yourself. And the amazing work that you're doing now. So, what I want to ask you is, how did that then lead on to you doing what you do now? Do you want to talk about how now you bring in nature-based therapy for yourself professionally and personally, and what project you're doing now where that's really embedded in kind of the whole philosophy around the importance of reconnecting back to country?
Yeah, so it's hard to know really where to start. Um, so there's a few things going on here. Menopause was going on for me, um, and then the nature-based side of it as well was going on for me. And I was in a state of, like I said, I couldn't stop crying, and I didn't know what I wanted to be. And and menopause will kind of like shift all of these your thinking, and you kind of like start, am I crazy that I want to go and do this, or you start to think about living your true self. And when you do nature-based therapy, you go through all these holistic health, you go through all the the modules, and you start to actually think about who you are and who you should be, not what everybody else tells you should be, or how you perform, or how you dress. And, for 30 years, I was somebody else outside of myself.
It
And
returns you back to your authentic self.
I'm back to my authentic self because of some trauma, because of menopause, and because I was listening to my body and listening to my heart, listening to everything, my gut. And then the nature-based therapy kind of like wound all into that. So I was starting to go, okay, it's time for me. Not worry about people judging me, going, oh, I know Sharlene Cohen. This is what has Sharlene Cohen. She's a businesswoman. She does this. She dresses like this, And so there was a real shift in all of that, and the whole judgmental process going on for me, and people judging me. I thought they were judging me. It's me judging me, thinking they're judging me, and all that
Mm.
craziness goes through your head. Anyway,
It's quite common in our society today that we often put on suits or we wear certain hats that is not our authentic self, but how we think we should be behaving or presenting in our society.
correct. And so like, yeah, that was interesting. So I've had to allow myself to free myself from all those inhibitions, expectations, judgmental, they're still there some days.
Mm-hmm.
But now my passion is in East Africa. Um and
Tell us what you're doing there. What's
gonna
happening in East
cry
Africa?
because so yeah, so it's interesting. Everything I do is connected to the environment or nature. So I kind of like any project that I do over there, and I'll share some of those projects, is with the intention of looking after our nature and our environment. Okay, so then I have to work backwards. So we work with the people, because without working with the people, we don't get to the positive outcomes we need to protect what's going on out there, poaching and chopping down of trees and, all this natural destruction. And so some of the projects that I kind of like work with is my Harvest Food Forest project, which is a project, it's about harvesting hope in schools predominantly right now, but then in the future it's going to be with some Maso women. So we teach the children how to grow food in schools. Now that's nothing unique or special about that, but it's only organic. There's absolutely no chemical pesticides as well. So that's quite a shift, because interestingly, in Kenya, they only know chemical pesticides. So you kind of like think they would be a lot more organic. In Uganda, yes, at the school in Uganda, they're more organic focused, but in Kenya, very, very chemical based. So anyway, so I went into these schools that were kind of like mainly impacted by human wildlife conflict. So in Uganda, the school that we've got set up is on the border of the national park where the mountain gorillas are. So the mountain gorillas will come out of the park, because it's not a fenced park, thankfully, and they will crop raid. They will raid bananas and do all sorts of damage on property. So then there's retaliation often. So in my mind, I'm going, that's one of our problems. So what can I do to do something in the schools, help the schools, and teach these children another way outside of having to go to the forest to do damage or kill animals or whatever. So we're teaching them the organic food process, fruit and vegetables. We also plant native trees in the compound as well. But alongside of that, with my business experience, we teach the children business enterprise skills. So we're harvesting food and we're harvesting life skills. So a certain percentage of the produce they harvest goes back to the school kitchen, and the other goes to the school market. They must learn how to record, negotiate, exchange money. They get taught how to save money. So that's the kind of like the difference of why this project's a little bit different to a normal school garden project, because I'm bringing in those business skills that I believe that will empower them and give them opportunity, because work is very limited. Schools don't go to school. There's a lot of them. So what can we do to teach them a skill? And even if they have a business and it's not a food business, it's not growing food, well, we all need food. We know that. So we're at least teaching that school, but those skills of business will be transferable to something else. So it could be a mechanics business, could be a hairdressing salon, it could be anything. So it's about teaching those life skills, food and business. So once again, and then when we're there, like I make sure that we engage with the kids, and I make sure they pick up the soil and they smell the soil. I make sure they touch the leaves of the fruit trees and they smell the leaf of the orange. So everything I do brings it back to that. So and even when we're creating a workbook now for the children. And yes, it talks about growing food and all of that, but we talk about the animals and we talk about the trees and we talk about medicines, like native medicines, like indigenous medicines. So you can use this you got a stomach ache and stuff like that. So unfortunately, a lot of cultures are losing their way, like us. So it's strange that you feel like you have to bring it back to the schools in East Africa, but you do, because they want to be like us. Why? I don't know.
It's the next generation. And in a sense, what I hear you doing, there's two things that stand out to me as you're talking. You're really working with the holistic health model, which looks at mental, emotional, physical, spiritual well-being. It looks at financial well-being, occupational well-being, social well-being, and environmental well-being. All those elements are really coming into just this project. The other thing I see you doing, and that goes back to like what we learn in Indigenous philosophy module is you're really decolonizing.
Mm.
And I think there's a sense from my experience of traveling overseas and into different countries that there's a lot of cultures that think the Western way is the better way, um, and not realizing that that way also has significant impacts on those 8 dimensions of well-being, and that we have the highest rate of heart disease, cardiovascular disease. We have, you know,
Stress.
mental health implications. So it's kind of, let's bring it back to building that reconnection to country first. Let's
Correct.
look at, those 8 dimensions of well-being and how can we support you, and to really embed culture into practice. And I
Absolutely.
think we need to start with the schools, because really the children are the next generation.
They are.
I think this
Yeah.
is really important work that you're doing. And something that just came to mind that I know you do is also that the tree planting.
Yes.
And when you're bringing in the native, when we're planting trees, we're almost planting those insights into the next generation as well.
Absolutely.
Symbolically, you're not just planting trees,
No.
but you're planting the next generation to, stay connected to culture, and working with local Indigenous people, that you're not coming in and telling them what to do,
Aha.
but it is a collaboration, that you have these unique skills from your life experience to bring in and support them through that process while they're still maintaining that empowerment as well. And I think that's really
Absolutely.
important. And I love that that's the way you're doing your work.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so true. I never go in with the white savior kind of thing. It's always about, it's usually they come to me, and then um yeah, I go, okay, well, what can we do? That one was a little bit different because I did recognize an opportunity, because of the human wildlife conflict, and I work in that space a lot. Um, and very poor schools, remote areas, high impact on the environment. So I went, okay, what can we do here to build this school up, build the children's confidence up a little bit as well, because they don't get in, their school fees are not paid for. They have to pay for their school fees. They don't have the privilege of education that we have here. So yes, I kind of like, and the lovely thing, which is because I'm a doer as well, I'm an activator. It's a lot easier to get things moving more quickly and more freely over there without the restrictions and the ticking of the 100 boxes and waiting for 10 years to happen here. And so,
Which is what we currently have here, especially in our
correct.
healthcare system. Just getting a project proposal over the line or getting it ticked off to go to the next stage, it can often take months or years, or they actually don't ever
Everybody
happen.
loses the energy and the motivation, and there's great things
Mm,
that are just being lost to the system. And
mm.
so for me, I can see immediate impact. Like at these schools, we've harvested over 400 kilos of food in 6 months, all in organic practices. And we have a mantra. Would you like me to share the mantra with
Yes, please. What is your mantra?
I'm going to stand up. So it's this. It's yum, yum in my tum tum. Yum, yum in my tum tum. Yum, yum in my tum tum. Yum,
That's very, very cute. And all the children are doing that.
all the children do this. They
Oh,
love
that's very
it.
cute. And did they come up with the mantra?
No, I actually did come because I always say yum, yum, and yummy and stuff like
Yeah,
that. So I've had to explain to them yum is good, healthy, organic
yeah,
food, and tum tum is your stomach. But they absolutely get into it. It's just those little messages that kind of like that will stay with them forever, like
yeah.
their childhood questions that you ask.
Yeah, I love
Um,
that. They will remember that. And I'm also really curious when you talk about, not having the red tape and being able to really bring in and execute programs, you see the impact straight away. you know it works, you know it's impactful. From that learning, all those insights that you've gained from doing that, how can we apply that to our healthcare system here? What advice or what could you share for anyone, that's watching this podcast who are having these difficulties implementing programs? Is there something you can bring in?
A really good and tough question, Kit. Yeah, it's difficult when you want to try and implement a program. If you want to do things for yourself, it's easier because you can do that, and you can, like I said, you have to listen to your heart, and you can kind of like move and shake as you want to a degree. But when you want to bring other people in on that journey, you know,
So the answer is just to start yourself.
I believe starting, which is what I did, but then find a way. If it's not in Australia, there's other places in the world that can take your energy and love what you want to share with them and so on. It doesn't have to be here. Yes,
think outside the box.
Think outside, and that's exactly what I did.
Think outside the box. I love that. And, that's exactly why I started the nature-based therapy training program, because I guess what I was seeing, the training that I saw being delivered through our institutions was very limited. And I had 15 years experience as a counsellor working in the mental health care system, that I saw part of the system wasn't working, and I found innovative ways that I brought into my own personal practice in working with my clients that I could see was really effective and really impactful. And I kind of integrated that into what I was already doing, not as a program as such, but just very subtly into my counseling sessions, and I saw them work. And so that's why I developed a training program, so I could share this knowledge with other people. So I didn't have to get the permission of the system to bring it in.
No.
I created it, and then if people are interested, they come to me. So perhaps it's that people, if they have an idea or a program that they're wanting to start, and just do it in your community and invite people to come and learn with you.
Yeah, and look, and on that, I want people to come with me. I want people to come on the journey with me, because what I want to do is to be able to, through what I can show and what you can participate in activities, and that's one of the many activities that we kind of like I do in East Africa, is that I want to inspire you to find your pocket and how you can give back. And it might be an idea that you, by coming on one of my trips with me, is that you go, well, actually, I can do that in Australia. And I don't need to be abroad because I have a young family still, and I can bring that back. So I think traveling opens your mind. It broadens your experience. You meet new people, new energy. And so, yes, you might do the next amazing thing in Asia, East Africa, wherever it may be, but it might be in your own backyard as well. So, yeah, so I want people to come on the trip and not think about it as a tourist trip. Of course, there's always elements of that, and you need that. But come along as a way to inspire you to new thinking, new connections, new ways of seeing and being with nature, as we said, new, just, everything. So, that might be the opportunity, Kit. They come along with me, they learn all this great stuff.
I love that, 100%. And I know just from my experience, like before I became a social worker and a counselor, I traveled the world, and I spent a lot of time in different countries and learning about different cultures. And I think that's what opened up my eyes about, the Western way and the way I grew up isn't the only way. And I see a lot of flaws in it too. Like there's pros and cons with everything. And I love that offering. I really see that as a potential. Do you want to share a little bit more about the future and where to from here with you, and an invitation for people to come along and learn from you?
Yeah, thanks, Kit. That's lovely. I appreciate that. So you talked about culture, and it's really interesting, as a young, white girl, growing up on a farm, very Australian, kind of beautiful family. Culture wasn't kind of like something we talked about a lot, other cultures. But I've always been so curious about it. But I'm talking about these 30 years of this suppressed. I'm not saying I've had a horrible life. It's not like that. I've had a great life. I'm married. I've had a great life. But not living my true self. And now culture and learning about people is actually nearly probably one of the most important parts of this, because culture, people, nature, it all is intertwined. So I'm
Mm,
with Indigenous people. So I spend a lot of time. I live with the Maasai women. I live in a Maasai cow dung house. So, I'm living the ways. I carry water with women. I collect the firewood. I do all of that stuff. So would love to be able to share the real parts and the real experiences. And I know that, there's people that say this, but I actually can bring that to people, and we can walk amongst the elephants. We can have that mindfulness time and that mindfulness experience. Yes, we have to be aware. We have to look around to make sure that we're safe and so on. But that actually makes you awake. You actually know
mm,
I'm here. I'm in this moment. So there's those kind of experiences of making jewelry with the mamas, sitting out under a tree with the goats under the shade, sitting on the ground making jewelry, actually listening to conversation, listening to this, they're talking, and the zebras are wandering past. So having those immersive time experiences of just reflection. And I think time out for reflection, which is what I loved about journaling, probably the powerful thing for me when I did the nature-based course was the journaling, because it
mm,
gave me time to sit and to think and observe, touch, feel, listen, all our senses and so
mm,
on. So I want to bring people into my world to know it's not my world, it's actually everybody's world. And don't fear, because I think I have a beautiful little mantra on my mirror, my bathroom window mirror, and it's basically, to be free is to take risks. And unfortunately, the planet has set us up to fear so they can control us. So the government wants us to live in fear because they want to control our every day. They want us to wake up at a certain time. They want us to go to do this. They want us to go to work 9 to 5. They want us to be in debt, so we have to keep, there's all of these things. We are so conditioned to that
mhm,
environment. And so therefore, we don't take any risks. We have become such a fearful society. And I think our children, that is a real problem for our children. And you go and you meet these children, and, they're running around the street. They're kicking, not a football, a piece of like plastic that's been wound up into a ball. It's really back to that real playful nature that I said about
mm,
before. And I mean, just thinking about it, I should be calling it playful nature.
It is. It's about having permission to go back and, be authentic and be playful. And that's why when I asked you that question at the beginning, did you play in nature? And I think we forget to play as adults. So it sounds like your invitation is really to come and do a
Right.
reset, return to your authentic self, um, think outside of the box, even if you're a professional and you're in the corporate world and you're feeling stuck, come and have a reset,
Yeah. And
you
not be
know?
worried about time, because
Yeah.
everything is on African time. So Dr. Gladys, who takes care of mountain gorillas, she wrote a book, and she says in the book that Western people have a watch, Africans have the time.
Mm.
So they have the time to do whatever they need to do in their day, and they just put it into their day wherever it works. They know they got to collect water, they got to cook food, but it's none of this 10 o'clock. I have to be
Yeah.
somewhere. So and they say, oh, that's Mzungu time. That's tourists, like outsiders time. Mzungu time. Oh,
Yep.
okay, you want me there at Mzungu time, 10 a.m. No. Freaking
You
time.
you integrate it. Yeah, I love that. And before we finish up, I just want to ask you, you mentioned elephants. Is there anything symbolic for you around elephants?
Great question. Okay. It's so interesting. Why Africa for me? Why I didn't know. Anyway, my mum always loved Africa. Well, she never traveled, she'd never done, but always loved the idea of Africa. Always loved elephants. So this was my first toy. You can see it's big. I don't know if you can see. This was my very first toy, and it's an elephant. And yeah, and now an elephant is my spirit animal. They are
Wow.
loyal, they're good listeners, and they have followers.
I love this. This is
And
beautiful. And this summarizes you.
so this has been very important, and I'm grateful that it never got thrown out.
Wow, you've kept that your whole childhood, and now it's quite symbolic that now it's come full circle around. And this is your purpose. This is why
It
you're
is.
here. And we often talk about identity, purpose, and connection. Your identity, your authentic self, your purpose, why you're here, and then that connection, how you share your purpose with other people.
Yeah, thank you, Kit. That's actually really beautiful. And I feel very lucky, because the last 10 years have been difficult for me. And we all have difficult times. But and I'm most of that I'm going to, well, menopause has been the hardest part, has also been the best part, because
Mm,
I listened to myself, and then I allowed myself to explore myself by then doing your course. And now I really don't allow anything to hold me back, because once it goes back to that risk mantra again, I
mhm,
don't allow them to hold me back. Obviously, I'm not stupid. And anybody who comes with me, I'm not going to put them in danger, but they will be challenged. They're
mhm,
not going to have the comforts. And there is children, and they swarm you, but and you kind of like, it gets all a little bit overwhelming. But that's part of that embracing it, and you learn a lot about yourself. I don't have children, but I absolutely love these children. I make
mhm.
so brings me so much joy. So yeah, it's just little triggers. It's always going off.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything. Thank you for sharing your experiences, your insight, the wisdom that you've gained. And thank you for joining me on this podcast.
Thank you, Kit. Well, if anybody wants to contact me, my business is urbanrewild.com. I do my Facebook. Most of my stuff is on my personal page, but I have a Facebook page called Harvest Food Forest to do with the kids' children's project. And then the work I do with the Maasai Mamas is called Maasai Mamas. So yeah, and anyone wants to reach out, jump on a trip or anything like that, just we can jump on a Zoom and have a conversation, and before you know it, we'll be away.
Wonderful. And I can't wait to come and join you one day
Thank
as
you,
well.
Kit. I would love that. I just can only imagine what you and I could get up to. What goodness we could get up to.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kit.
Thank you for joining us on the journey into nature's embrace. Subscribe for more insights and stories that nurture the soul. Until next time, stay grounded.